Okay, welcome everybody to the Waitai Coastal-Burwood Community Board briefing for 15th of August 2022. We're kicking off here at 3 p.m. I just remind you that this is being live streamed onto YouTube. So today we're going to hear from the Christchurch Wastewater Treatment Plant Recovery Update, which we'll go for about sort of 45 minutes. So we just have one person who's not here yet, Councillor Phil Major, who I assume won't be too far away. So welcome, thank you, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time. So yeah, today's presentation, as you mentioned, it'll probably take about 25 minutes, and then we'll have about 20 minutes worth of space there for questioning. Now,
Excellent.
The presentation itself is up on screen there. In terms of a quick overview of what we'll be talking about today, so presentation, we can give it to you in two parts. Part one is on our community support and social response and our business support. And then we can have a quick break for questions after that, and then we can move on to part two, which is an update on the operational repair works that have been undertaken.
Can I just, encourage you to actually talk, right at the, pull that microphone right to you. And what was your name, sorry?
Sorry, my name's Michael Croucher. I'm the program manager for the recovery works that are going on out of the plant.
Thanks, Mike. That's a lot better too.
Right. So if we can jump on to the next slide, please. So there's a overview. So we've got part one and part two. So part two, we can go through the environmental monitoring, an update on the interim operational works that have been going on. We'll have a quick talk about the recovery of the oxidation ponds, and then also briefly touch on the options assessment for the permanent replacement. Trickling filter and media removal, can give you an update. We probably know that already, that media is all gone now from those two trickling filters. Quick update on our communications that we've been undertaking with the public and to the website, and then we'll cover a summary of presentations on. So I've got most of the team here that can talk to the various parts of the presentation. So I'll grab Gary up now, who will talk through part one, and then stop and have some questions on that if you like.
Sounds good. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you. And we're in this course for a wee while.
And Councillor Major's just turned up, so that's perfect timing.
So I'll do an overview on the community support and social package. So these slides are a little bit out of date from last week, so I'll just talk to them as I got them. So the 4 community partners finished distribution on last Friday. And this morning I've been around and picked up all the collateral and all the unspent cards. 20 plus schools and early learning centres have received support, and there's another 27 currently being processed, which Council agreed to last Wednesday. Yep. And I've already heard from the local staff that there's been a few contacts already, which is good. Individual payments, so we're a little bit higher than that, but not too much. I think we're at about 570 made to affected households. Sorry, just go back to the first point. So those were all the in-zone payments. So the in-zone payments have finished as of last Friday. We're now just doing out-of-zone payments. So we were looking at a more targeted approach. So we started off with that whole, if you're inside the zone, there was a blanket approach. Now we're looking at a more targeted approach. So help to remove the barriers to primary health. So we have a project with Pegasus House, which is their PCWs, their community workers. So basically we put in, there's an email address and a phone number for people to contact with any, any roadblocks to health at the moment, whether that be transport, I need a taxi or I need whatever, to the fact of being able to pay for a doctor's appointment. We have still had no uptake on it. The information went out on all of the flyers, and we've had it all over the social media. But at the moment, it might just be something that's going to pick up. But at the moment, it's pretty quiet. as I said before, we've identified some more schools and early learning centres. The other thing we've asked and we're paying for is a new learning module within the schools. So basically, it's a how do you put it? Toilet to processing project on how a wastewater plant works. And when we talked to the principals initially and the managers of the early learning centres, they just said their kids would just love this. So education are putting together a package, and then we are hoping to partner on a bit of a science fair towards the end of the year, specifically around this, to see what schools have come up with. They might have come up with some bright idea that we can do the whole thing differently. I'm not sure. So that's quite good. And then both of the affected boards, so your board and Linwood Central Healthcare at the moment, there is some money put aside for extra support in your area. Should apply for that. And I'm not too sure how that's going. I haven't caught up, but yeah, so that's there. So overall, it really has slowed down quite a lot. And the response from most people, the response is a bit mixed, but we've completed the first part of the project. 31st of August, we'll complete the second part, and the schools and everything else will roll on.
Excellent.
So I've got business support on behalf of someone else, but businesses have been contacted, so the targeted communications happened. Again, as of this morning, there'd been no real response back from business around that, but Bruce Rendell is leading that from a council viewpoint. That might be me. So I'm going to do questions now out of that bit.
Does anybody on the board have any questions? So we'll start with Celeste.
Yep.
Thanks for the update. Was Southview Brighton School on that list?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so Southview Brighton and a number of extra number of the preschools and schools through here.
Yeah, I think it's really brilliant that you're going out and educating the schools. I know you had an open day out at the facility years ago, and I went out with my family and some other friends, and we found it absolutely fascinating. Our kids just loved it. The big take home was that we don't really chew carrots and corn and peas enough. Yes, we saw some pretty interesting piles, but there you go. Yeah. Okay. So we don't have any more questions. Linda and Joe.
I think you've had to spearhead this, haven't you? The whole project.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think you've had a challenging job, and I think you've done it very well.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Linda. Joe.
Does the paint discoloration come into this part? Or
No,
that's the next part.
That's okay. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else? Any questions? No. Thanks, Gary.
Can I just steal a little bit of time? I just want to say to Linda, this will be the last time I'll see her. I've only just realised today that she's not standing again, but having been the governance manager out here at some point, I just want to say thank you, Linda, for the time you have given to this community and to everybody, and much appreciated. And I hope the next part of the journey is as much fun, if not more.
Thank you. I'll tell you this, I'm not going to be PC.
Fair deal.
Thank you. And that's a nice touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
All right, Michael, what's next?
Okay, Nigel. So there's a good segue with paint discoloration. So Nigel's here to have a chat on our environmental response.
Welcome, Nigel.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly and guys. Here's this one here. So, okay, most guys will know that. We started off doing some grab sampling, spot sampling to tell us what to look for, gave us a better idea, and we identified hydrogen sulfide as one of the most obvious ones that both caused the smell and fortuitously was able to be picked up. We were able to get monitors that we could look for that so we've settled on 6 continuous monitors put in residential settings, and we, as you can see there, we update those results on the website weekly. And as well as that, we've chosen those 3 of the ones that are just sort of equally spaced around the ponds as a central monitor on a combined graph. The reason we do that is to oftentimes, of course, when the wind is blowing, say from the east, you'll see no readings at South Brighton School, for instance. So we just wanted to make it pretty clear that doesn't mean that there's nothing coming off the ponds at all. The combined graph gives a better overview of just what is happening for the pond at any one time. Overall, the results are now well and truly, consistently almost below that 0.03 parts per million, which is the international standard that has been set for holding, nuisance and distress to people. Indoor monitoring, we haven't done any of that to date. We're looking at that now, and our first focus is we're using the schools for doing our outdoor monitoring. We've got two locations, so we'll start with those and do some monitoring inside as well, which will both give us some information about whether there is build up inside, and also with the schools, it also just helps that information, and they'll be able to they can use all our results that we're getting in that area for project work in the future as well.
So which two schools?
South Brighton
And
Bromley. Yeah. And the monitors, it's fine. We'll not necessarily all 6 that you see there, but it's definitely planned. Council's bought those monitors, so it's intended that they'll be staying in place for a number of years as the work develops around the treatment works and in its next phases. And so, that picture that you can see there shows the sampling sites that we're using at the moment. The red dots are the Sentinel sites that we combine as one graph, and we put the others up as individual on the website each week as well. And you can see down in the bottom left there is just a graphic of the wind conditions between June and September, which is why our air quality specialist has suggested that that's where we work the sites. And certainly South Brighton School, there's probably not as much. I don't think we've seen as significant readings at the pump station further down, but so the South Brighton School seems to be a good one to have on this side. And so that's pretty much it. Yeah, so there's once again that's a Sentinel graph hot off the printer. No, it's not, is it? No. Did you update the? Oh, you have another one to come. Yeah, so that's an example of a Sentinel graph there.
Do you think you could explain that a bit?
Yeah, sure. So you've got three different colours there, which is the three sites, and so they're probably not as good. The older graphs had more going on, if you like. So basically, you can see there for Rudd's Road, we've back on the 23rd, there was a spike above that 0.03 reading, but after that, we've just had various spikes, and oftentimes the meter is below its level of detection, and we're just getting either flat lines because there's either very low levels or else the wind's blowing in the opposite direction.
So that you're saying that horizontal line represents the international standard with which makes people feel ill, or it's a level where about 40% of people will start to experience discomfort. Right. May get tearing of eyes or some, potentially some breathing difficulties if you've already got an issue, say with asthma and stuff like that. Yes. So I guess that graph shows that since the end of July, that there hasn't been many occasions where it's actually got above a quarter, in fact, or maybe even a third of the international standard.
That's correct. We have got one monitor at Shorten Street, right on the end closest to the ponds. That gets higher levels, but still pretty much running pretty close to 0.03 most of the time.
Yeah, how many times did it go over 0.03 before these dates?
It still wasn't often. But I would have to say some of the spikes were quite high. Okay. There were some quite high levels, no doubt about that. Probably that was more of the issue of the concentration rather than the time that went. We just seemed to get spikes from time to time. But probably about what you see there, but the concentrations were were higher.
So that those experiences that people had early on would have been very, very real in terms of people feeling uncomfortable and unwell as a result of the odours.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah, it's good to know. Thank you.
Next slide. You're doing. Okay. Oh, and just that's fine. Just the other thing which I haven't got in my slides, I apologise for that. I used to have that, is that we also up until this week we've been meeting with the medical officer of health and ECAN on a weekly basis as well, and I also obviously send them those results before we meet, and we discuss them and keep medical officer of health up to date. So it's another issue that we're dealing with. So yeah, the thing now for me for environmental monitoring, paint discoloration. So we've had 39 properties have contacted council and concerned about the fact that they were experiencing or observing paint discoloration on their property. And you can see there initially we did a test for mould. It was suggested and did appear early on that maybe it was a mould, something coming off the ponds, which was quite concerning for people, because of the natural question was, well, if that's what's growing on the side of their house, what are we breathing in? So, but for the presence of mould, the specialist that did that testing has indicated that there were no unusual species of mould there, or for that matter, in unusual numbers, higher numbers than we would experience anywhere else around the city as well. So we were able to tick that one off. And then when they visited those first 4 houses, they also did a test straight away to see if there was evidence of lead-based paint on those houses. And so we tested another 8 properties for a reaction of lead sulfide. So that's basically where the hydrogen sulfide that's been in the air at times off the ponds has reacted with the lead-based paint. Now that reaction, if you're concerned at your property and you're going to renovate it that you might have lead-based paint, you go to a hardware store and you buy a wee test kit, and you get a very smelly solution and you paint that onto the paint surface and it goes black. Well, that's exactly the reaction that's happening here. It's the hydrogen sulfide is doing that, and so and it doesn't matter whether the house had been previously painted or not. It's that seems to get through, just like you might experience if where you've had a leak in the roof, put new paint over the black, that black mark still comes through, and so we're seeing that here as well. And so we're pretty clear that's what's caused the staining on the houses. And so the reaction from the hydrogen sulfide is expected to fade over time, and you see that already as the worst staining on properties that has it is up under the eaves, and that hasn't faded. And then you come down the house and it's darker up on the wall side, and then it's quite pale down there often. And we've been advised that when we get increased sunlight, daylight, and our hydrogen sulfide levels continue to decrease, that we could expect to see in many properties that the staining should just fade away of its own accord over a month or two. There's not a lot of suggestion that it's actually doing any erosion or damage to paintwork.
Okay.
And there is also there is a possibility that it has been suggested if the people clean with a proprietary chlorine-based cleaner, that assists the oxidation process, but it's not essential to it. And at this stage, we want to see the end of, as Helen will talk about later, we want to see the end of September come. We were pretty hopeful that the ponds will be performing better, and at that stage we're hoping there won't be a lot of hydrogen sulfide around any longer, and we'll start looking at it then and seeing if we are seeing good evidence of it starting to fade off.
Okay. Yeah, questions, Joe? So that graph, that picture there, sorry, just gives you a pictorial of the sort of fall
where the houses were that have contacted us, and yeah, and you have out here in Brighton. You've I think you've probably had as many as anywhere.
Did you have a question, Joe?
Sorry, Joe.
Yeah, sorry, 39 people contacted you. Do you mean just contacted, or you tested those 39?
No, we only tested 8.
You only tested 80 of the 39?
Yeah,
What about
yeah.
the rest? Are they going to be tested, or are they just?
No, we're not going to test them, but we've been in contact with them all. And
Yeah.
anybody who's come back to us and wants to discuss it further with us, we're going out and visiting them. We've got a
Wonderful.
list of myself and Kat Keenan will be going to visit.
Okay, it just wasn't
guys.
quite clear on the
Yeah, sorry
wording, so I
about
just
that.
wanted
Yeah.
to make sure.
We're definitely not abandoning people on it. We want to keep in touch with it and just see what's happening. And we'll be watching it through September and afterwards.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
No, that's good.
Does anybody else have any questions? Linda?
I'm just thinking ahead. You've got that number, even more possibly coming out.
Sorry about that. I probably should have clarified that. When you speak to people, when I've spoken to a lot of the people who have phoned in, I would say probably each person you speak to talks about three other people up the street. So it could be, it could easily be probably 100 houses. Yeah.
So whatever rectifies the problem they've got with their house out of this, that will be covered by the council's own insurance.
At this stage, we're not expecting it to cost a lot of money. We're hoping a lot of it will. The advice to us is that it will fade on its own accord.
That's over the short term.
A month or two. Yeah.
So no long term.
No.
That's
That's what I hope. We've got to stay in touch with it
Yes.
and just see what happens. But that's what we're looking for at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nigel, how likely is it that that house up here is actually positively, that there's some kind of link between the experience?
There is no house there, Kelly.
Isn't there? Because it does look a lot like.
She's not like that.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah,
say.
no, sorry. I haven't spotted that before. I hadn't sat so close to the picture before.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a glitch in the. That's what's happened there. Sorry, is that there is a house somewhere. It's an address. It wasn't clear, and it's pinged it
Well,
up.
keep it to yourself, won't you?
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I'm kind of curious is, I didn't realise that there were still a lot of houses painted with lead paint. Do you recall when they stopped?
Oh, it was stopped. It probably was stopped in the before the 80s. But what the situation? A lot of these houses have been repainted. No question about that. But the lead, the reaction between the hydrogen sulfide and the lead still comes through. Yeah.
Even though it may have been painted over a couple of times.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, a good example of one of the properties is the chap's renovated his house. The south facing weatherboards were in bad condition, so he pulled those off and he replaced them with pre-primed boards from one of the hardware stores, put them up, then painted the whole house with the same paint. Yeah. And the three sides that had the old weatherboards on, all stained, and of course the ones with the new pre-primed boards, perfect. Wow. So yeah, it seems to get through.
Interesting. Yeah. So once painted in with lead-based paint, it's always painted with.
Yeah, it is. It's quite. I mean, I've talked to other guys about it. I don't know, a house I had myself down in Dunedin once. The paint, you were able to peel it right back, and this bare wood came up clean. Put the test solution on the bare wood, still the lead's impregnated there. It's a very persistent, material.
Okay, excellent. Does anybody else have any final questions for Nigel? No? Excellent, thank you. It's really interesting. Nothing like the science to put a bit of perspective on things. Welcome, Helen.
Thank you. So just to give you an update on the interim treatment process that's in place, and will be the kids coming through the schooling system will know far more about this than the rest of us know. So the trickling filters, of course, did about 60% of the heavy lifting in terms of removing the organic load coming into the plant. So what we've done is commissioned this activated sludge treatment plant to replace that treatment facility. The design life for it is around 5 years, and that gives us plenty of time to work through the options for what we do to replace the trickling filters in the long term. And of course, look at the options for improving the plant, particularly with respect to greenhouse gases. One of the things about the trickling filters, the conversion to the activated sludge plant is that we've taken 2 clarifiers out. So we only now have 2 rather than 4 clarifiers. And the activated sludge plant doesn't have the same capacity as the trickling filters. So everything's a bit tighter. There's not the redundancy in the plant that we used to enjoy. And so what we've done is review the critical spares that we need to have and increase both the scope and depth of those critical spares on site. And we've got a more proactive maintenance schedule in place to minimise breakdowns. And of course, we're closely monitoring the wastewater. Are you moving things on for me?
No.
It's all happening over there. Thank you very much.
Just to clarify, so you're saying that the trickle filters took 60% of the load before the incident,
Yes.
and now you've replaced that now that they're emptied with the sludge plant, and is that taking like 100%, or is it taking that 60%?
No, neither of those.
Neither of those.
No, but it's doing most of it. It's
Oh,
doing most of the work. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the same capacity as the trickling filters. And particularly when we have high flows through the plant, we'll have to bypass. So we still have the primary treatment, so it still goes through the primary settlement tanks, and we still have the secondary contact tanks, but then it will go straight out to the ponds.
So will the effect of that sort of the next 5 years, we can expect some form of odour?
I'll talk about that.
Sorry. Jumping
It's too
ahead.
smart. Jumping ahead. All right, so just to see what's happening in the activated sludge plant. So you can see the activated sludge in suspension in the water column on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side, how quickly that settles out. And that's what we want to see. So sewage treatment is a constant process of taking solids and organic material out and having the clear supernatant liquid on the top that goes on to the next stage of the process and eventually into the ponds and out the outfall. So we're very happy to see that. Moving on to the next one. And that's just a close-up that the operators out at the treatment plant get very excited about. So there's 2 things they're excited about. One is the absence of any filamentous bacteria in there. We don't want those. And they also produce a lot of frothing. And those free swimming ciliates that you can see there, they're very happy with. And the clumping that you see, they're also very happy with. So that's what's helping us get that good clear liquid coming off the top. And move to the next one. So yes, prior to the fire, the ponds only had a minor treatment role because the trickling filters did so much of the hard work. However, post-fire, we've only had primary treated effluent going into those ponds, and the oxidation ponds have had to do a lot more work. They perform pretty well through the summer, and oxidation ponds like it to be warm and windy. But of course did not perform so well through the winter. Part of the reason for the drop in odour over the last few weeks has been the wet weather, actually. So the wet weather has had a flushing effect on the ponds, and during that last storm event, the flow through the treatment plant was about 4 times what we usually see. Wow. So we had about 8 cubics coming in, and usually we only have around 2 cubic metres per second coming through that plant.
To give you some context, the WIMAC varies between sort of like about 36 cubic metres and thousands. So what are we talking here? 2?
2. So if you look over, if you stand on the Gloucester Street Bridge and look at the Avon, it's about 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 cubic metres per second. So that's a good thing in terms of the ponds, but we're also doing sludge surveys across our ponds. And we've looked across 4 of them so far, and we have got a reasonable amount of sludge in the bottom of pond 1, but we're not seeing too much in the other ponds, so we're quite happy about that. And the reason we're a little concerned about that level of sludge is that can be quite anaerobic, so no oxygen in the bottom of those ponds, and if that gets stirred up, it can affect the quality of the pond.
So from time to time I've driven past, and a pond has been completely emptied and there are graders in there taking sludge out. Is that?
Well, that would have been a long time ago, Kelly.
Probably wasn't. Oh, did you do it?
We're talking some years ago. Yeah.
So do you not do that very often?
No, we don't need to do that very often, or at all actually now, because we're doing most of the treatment within the treatment plant.
Oh, okay.
And not sending high levels of organics or solids into those ponds.
So that was an old style.
Yeah.
Of,
Yep.
Okay.
When they were working as proper oxidation ponds.
Right.
But yeah, those oxidation ponds, they will recover progressively and improve. But one of the things that you noted was, yes, the treatment through the activated sludge plant, it's not doing as much as the trickling filters. Exactly how much we've replaced, we'll find out over the next few weeks as it settles down. But the other thing is that it's more prone to breakdown, if you like. If we had breakdown with the trickling filters, it's fine. One trickling filter would do most of the work and we could take time to repair the other one. But with this system, if we have a breakdown, we will immediately see a deterioration in the quality of the wastewater going into the ponds. And so we could have trouble with those ponds from time to time. In the short term, we hope that tuning the process will mean that it'll work well now and through the summer. But next winter is when we might need to run into troubles. If we move into the next one of the things we're doing is working to get additional aerators on pond 1. So there's 2 mechanical aerators on pond 1 that we are using to add oxygen to that pond. And we're going to put more on that pond so that if we do have interruptions to the treatment through next winter, that we can use that aeration to compensate for that and keep the ponds in good condition. The wastewater discharge to the outfall, of course, it continues to be of poor quality, much poorer than we're used to, and it exceeds standard values for fecal coliforms and enterococci. So we continue to notify Environment Canterbury and the Medical Officer of Health. And as Nigel alluded to, we do work very closely with Environment Canterbury and Community Public Health.
Can you put that in context for us? I mean, are there any other towns and cities in New Zealand that would be discharging sewage into the sea in a similar vein to us now?
And considerably worse, yes.
And considerably worse.
Yes.
So our system would be quite advanced compared to a lot of others?
Yes, as you'd expect for a large city like this, yeah. The good thing about this, though, is that the outfall is 3 kilometres offshore and we're not seeing any impact on the beach. So we sample at 3 points on the beach, up at the surf club, along the Spit and over at Sumner, and we've doubled that sampling. So we're now sampling twice a week. And the only time we see high bacterial levels on the beach is after a big storm event, and that's largely due to wastewater overflows and stormwater entering the rivers and streams and directly to the beach.
Did you have a question, Jo?
Yeah. So on the beach by the surf club at the moment, there's a polluted water sign.
That's correct.
That's telling people to keep out of the water. Is that going to be there for a long time? Do you think?
That's following the rain.
Following the rain?
Yeah,
so
following the
that
big rain
will
events.
probably be clear soon.
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing I was going to say on the prior slide, you had about the dependent on the weather conditions. What is the best conditions?
Nice, warm, windy summer is
Okay.
best for the ponds. Yes.
Yeah. So you said at the moment with the 3 to September, expecting.
Yeah, we're building the well, there's 2 things going on. So there's
Yeah.
treatment in the ponds themselves,
Yes.
but there's also building the biology in the activated sludge plant.
Okay, so that's
And
better
that's-
to have dry weather?
No,
No?
it's just better to be a bit warmer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's actually building quite well. We're pretty pleased with how that's going.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
That's right. And the last one. So that's to note that the options assessment is underway and we've briefed the councillors on the long list of options, and there's a short list of 3 options that we're doing some further work on. So that's for the replacement. And that decision will be made towards the end of the year.
Okay.
So that's me. Back to Michael.
Thanks, all. So we might just answer a few questions if that's possible.
Sure.
Thanks, Helen, that's great. There was a wee graphic, and maybe on my computer, but showing the pond health. with all the red dots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It's on the website, yeah.
Is pond one starting to change colour to the?
Oh, I'd dearly like to change pond one. So yes, pond one is starting to improve in terms of the dissolved oxygen levels, but it's still got quite a high biological oxygen demand. So until both things improve, we're not going to turn it orange,
Okay.
lone green.
But so so oxygen, getting oxygen into the fluid is the secret. That is it. Is the aerators
Reducing the organic load,
yeah,
which is a demand on oxygen, and increasing the oxygen. Yes. Yeah.
So if we had oxygen per se in bottles or whatever, big, could you inject that somehow into the? Is that what you're trying to achieve? Getting oxygen?
We're already doing that by adding the peroxide.
Yeah.
So we add peroxide to the effluent going into the ponds,
Yeah, but
and that directly increases the
and
oxygen.
the aerators help as well.
And the aerators help as well. That's correct.
Thank you.
Just another question. Once the replacement for the trickle filters are in place, will there be domes back over the?
Only if we rebuild trickling filters.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it depends what option we go with. If we rebuild trickling filters, yes, they're likely to have roofs over the top of them.
okay.
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting. So there may not be a need for them at all.
There may not be a need for them at all.
Right. Right. Michael.
Thanks. Trickling filters. Seems like we're talking about trickling filters. The last of the two structures was emptied last week, which is about 5 or so weeks ahead of schedule. So the contractors that have been working out of the plant have done a fantastic job. Removed it quickly and safely. The next 3 weeks they will spend just cleaning down the walls within those two filter structures and removing the ramp that you can see in the centre of the two structures, and then they should be off site by the end of this month or early next month. That image you see there was captured by one of our drones last Wednesday. Next slide, please. So there was a video that was captured by the same drone on the same day. Just gives you a little bit of a more interactive, I suppose, or live view of what's been happening out at the plant in terms of the emptying of the trickling filters. And that's probably the best image there that you see the plant as a whole. So on the left-hand side there, you've got the two trickling filter structures that are now empty. In the centre of the screen, the centre bottom, you've kind of got the primary settlement tank. So that's when the effluent first arrives into the plant. And then above that, they kind of look the same. You've got the secondary contact tanks. And then off to the right, you've got the 4 clarifiers. The 2 clarifiers that are on the left are their converted clarifiers. You can see the aerators, 4 aerators on each operating. So that's our activated sludge plant. You can kind of make a bit of a comparison between the colour of the effluent that's sitting in the activated sludge plant compared to the colour of the liquid sitting in the 2 remaining clarifiers. So it's from those clarifiers that liquid is then discharged out into the oxidation pond. So already that liquid is a lot clearer than what was going out into the pond. Next slide, please. Councillor Major mentioned before about the graphic of the ponds improvements. So on the right-hand side there, there's our infographic that goes up on Council's website. It's updated every Thursday. So you can see there the all 7 ponds red at this stage, and the intention is those ponds will be monitored, or they are being monitored, and as the condition of them improve, we can change those to a traffic light indicator from red, orange to green, with green indicating pond health is good and likelihood of odour is low. The trickling filter bank complete, that will be removed this week. There's no point having that there when it's complete, but we will retain the wind direction. In terms of our communications, 15,000 flyers went out over last week. So within that flyer, it's giving an update on where we are at with our interim works, and also it was giving some advice on those that were suffering paint discoloration, what was causing that, and that our expectation is that what the advice we've received is that that will fade, as Nigel said, over the coming months. So our It's also updated on our website that the monitoring sites, so not just the Sentinel graph you saw before, but all 6 monitors have their own graphs. They go up every, is it Tuesday, Nigel? Yeah, Tuesday they're updated. And our e-newsletter also goes out, which has that infographic on it as well. We did have a roll. Next slide, please.
I don't think it's a bad idea to leave that 100% completed trickle filter stuff up there. I mean, people will always know where it's at, you know, rather than wondering. Not everyone's going to capture it the first time.
No,
Just a thought.
Yep. We did have a rolling blog that was going. That rolling blog ended last Friday. Reason for that is back in June, we were probably having about 5,500 hits on that blog a day. Last week, they had dropped right down to about 25 a day. So we're not saying it's gone for good. At this stage, it appears there's not a need for it. That information is contained on our website and on our e-newsletter. Should the situation change, we're quite happy to bring that blog back. But at this stage, it was taking a lot of staff time up for very little gain. So reporting coming up, we have a weekly meeting with the communications advisory group that will be shifting to fortnightly as the amount of changes at the plant are reducing now, and we are updating council on the 25th of this month, giving them an update on progress and where we're at the plant. Next slide, please. So I guess summary, this is just recapping everything that this presentation's kind of covered, and I guess other key messages to take away. So our social response is now focusing on targeted support for those that are most affected. So as Gary's mentioned, the in-zone applications, in-zone closed last Friday, and out-of-zone is still open at the end of the month. Interim treatment solution that went operational on the 27th of July, as Helen's commented on, where the biology within those activated sludge plants is building nicely, and we're on track to meet September target for maximum reduction in odour coming from those ponds. Second trickling filter, as you've seen, is emptied now. Contractors will be off site end of this month, early next month. A new infographic, which will allow the public to see how those ponds are progressing, is up on our website. Hydrogen sulfide emissions from the ponds, as you can see from those 6 monitors, they're well down. And our paint staining results went out, and advice on how to treat that went out on that 15,000 fly drop that happened last week. I think, yeah, questions.
That's it. So we'll just perhaps finish off. We've got a few minutes to spare with questions. So before we finish in 5 minutes, so we'll start with Linda and then Phil. And any statements you want to make, etc.
Those chemicals that are going out through that bring discharge, do they have any effect on aquatic life?
So that the hydrogen peroxide.
Yes.
So hydrogen peroxide breaks down into water and oxygen. So the primary purpose
of that before, but there's no effect.
It's
No,
Dead animals.
no, the hydrogen peroxide is helpful. Yeah, so it improves the quality of the water. Sounds bizarre given how corrosive it is on its own.
What about the fecal matter?
Yes, so we are putting out effluent with a higher organic load. So it's possible there'll be local depletion of oxygen at the outfall. However, it's unlikely to be much of an effect because there's a whole lot of diffusers on the outfall as well. So yeah, we don't anticipate much effect on ocean life, as it were.
3 kilometres offshore.
3 kilometres offshore, and
not
then
particularly deep, is it?
and then diffusers as well. So it's not going out in one lump, if you like.
Thank you, Linda. Phil?
We were talking before about ECAN. They've got them involved in medical officer of health and all of your time, because before this fire happened, you were busy people anyway without having to have all this to contend with. Is all the costs of everything, your time, ECAN, medical officer, all that sort of stuff, being covered by insurance? Or are we wearing some of it?
my understanding is it's covered by insurance as far ECAN's time and medical officer of health. Yeah, I can't comment on that. I don't believe so. But as far as council time and council efforts that have gone into this, at this stage, yes.
Okay, no, that's good.
Okay, any, Joe? And then Phoebe?
Sorry, with the pollution for the wildlife and everything, quite a few weeks ago, there were a lot of like dead fish and everything popping up. Were they all tested and were they affected by any pollution from the outboard?
I'm not aware of any
No,
dead fish.
I'm not aware of any
Are you
dead
aware?
fish, no.
There's a couple of episodes where there was some on the estuary and there was some on the other South Shore side. And there were probably hundreds all over the beach. So you weren't informed about that?
No, it would have been Environment Canterbury if there is any work
Okay.
done, but if they're on the estuary side, it's nothing to do with the outfall anyway.
Yeah, okay. I think there was an episode where there was quite a few in different places, and then there was shellfish as well. Dozens and dozens of, probably hundreds or thousands of shellfish actually washed up, which was quite unusual. So,
No,
okay.
no, we'd have to ask Environment Canterbury.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Bibi?
Hi, thank you. In terms of international standards, is trickling filters the standard way people deal with this, or is there a variety of ways? I'm just thinking the future, like we have an opportunity to change the way we do this, presumably, that you're talking to councils.
Trickling filters are well established and very good technology. So there's nothing wrong with trickling filters just because they're perhaps been around for a while. Newer plants tend to be activated sludge plants. It's partly because there's a smaller footprint as well. But yeah, activated sludge is probably where we'd want to go. But it just depends on the costs and the benefits, and we're going to be looking at all of the options.
And you're taking environmental factors into account.
Absolutely, and the opportunity to add more nutrient removal. So not just the organic load, but the nutrients as well, and the opportunity to reduce the potential for greenhouse gases. Yep.
Awesome, thank you.
Look, we've come to the end of the time. Thank you so much for coming out, and on behalf of the board and the public who may or may not be watching, thank you so much for all you've done. I know it's been a difficult time, but I feel like the communication has been first class since we got a few weeks into it. So yeah, really appreciate it. Thanks for coming out, all of you, Nigel, Gary, Michael and Helen. So thanks very much.